And I want to thank the Senator from California. What a pleasure it is to work with you on this bill and this important piece of legislation. You've stated it so well. I want to perhaps go over a few items that I think ought to be also said. I know when I first became Secretary of Housing and Urban Development that I was shocked at the role, ever-increasing and prominent role that mortgage brokers play in the home purchasing process. And you know, when there is such a close working relationship with a customer, there's issues of yield spread premiums, there's a question of fiduciary responsibility. All of these issues arise because of that relationship, oftentimes the closest point of contact to the customer, and many, many times the most vulnerable of customers. So that's why I'm really delighted to join with the Senator from California in the Safe Mortgage Licensing Act. And I hope, like her, that we can get at it and talk about it. And I'd like for us to work with the managers of the bill. I know that there are some concerns, as the Senator mentioned. Perhaps they can be resolved in conference, but I look forward to working with the bill managers towards a resolution of those small issues that may remain. But with foreclosures at record levels and home prices in steady decline, we must act quickly to restore consumer confidence in the housing market. Florida has the dubious distinction of ranking number 2 in the nation in foreclosures, Mr. President. In February, Florida had one foreclosure filing for every 254 households, up more than 7% from January's rate. Truly frightening. Last year, more than 2% of Florida households entered some form of foreclosure, and that is a 124% increase from the year 2006. Many of these foreclosures can be attributed to predatory lending practices of unscrupulous mortgage brokers. And while the mortgage broker industry ought to be commended for supporting this bill, as in my own profession of law, there are always bad actors out there, and that's what this is getting at. Let me just point out that in the state of Florida, we have the dubious distinction of leading the country when it comes to foreclosures. This is a list of the top cities across the country. And I can see why it is the Senator from Florida and California that are here talking about this. We've been hit hard. Here is number 1, leading the country, Cape Coral, Fort Myers, Florida, 5.8%. And then we have number 2 is Port St. Lucie, Florida, 3.9%. And then Miami Beach and Kendall, 3.1%. Fort Lauderdale, Pompano, Deerfield Beach, 3%. And then after a couple of California communities in Ohio, we have Naples, Marco Island, Florida, 2.7%. By the way, this is concentrated in some of the better areas of Florida where home prices have been in a dramatic rise for many, many months and years in the recent past. So the current system provides little coordination between state regulators and therefore exposes consumers to predatory loan originators who simply have crossed state lines. The creation of a nationwide system will eliminate bad actors by keeping track of those who violated the law, had their licenses revoked, or failed to fulfill appropriate educational requirements that will benefit families and eventually the marketplace. It would give homebuyers more transparency and more peace of mind as they make one of the most important decisions, and frankly, maybe the largest financial decision of their lives. The Safe Mortgage Licensing Act would, for the first time, establish a national professional licensing standard for mortgage brokers and lenders. This would ensure that all mortgage professionals are trained by federal lending laws, ethics, consumer protection, and subprime market lending. The legislation also would create a national database that consumers can use to verify the credentials of the brokers and lenders. This amendment would require all residential mortgage loan originators to be licensed, provide fingerprints, and a summary of work experience and consent to a background check. States are given 12 months to develop licensing standards to ensure that applicants meet the following minimum criteria. No felony convictions, as the Senator said from California. No similar licenses ever revoked. A demonstrated record of financial responsibility. Successful completion of education requirements. And passage of a written exam. If this does not occur, the Housing and Urban Development Secretary is empowered to develop the national database and license generating revenue for its implementations to freeze and license to applicants. The Federal Reserve, Treasury, and FDIC must also register all residential mortgage loan originators employed by national banks within 12 months of this legislation being enacted. The SAFE Act has been endorsed by mortgage regulators in 40 states. So I want to thank the senator from California for working with me on this very important piece of legislation. I also want to mention the National Realtors Association agrees with this amendment and supports it. We need to do more to empower families who have worked hard, who look to homeownership as an important piece of their American dream. And I know that while there are details to be worked out, and I look forward to working with Chairman Dodd and Ranking Member Shelby to see if we can eliminate any of the concerns that might be out there. We don't want to throw a net so wide that it may ensnare people that we're not intending for this to be their concern. But we also are committed to getting this done. This is an important step forward. I look forward to moving the process along, and I appreciate, again, working with the distinguished senator from California.